Shalum, Shalum, and welcome. Welcome to White Robes family. My name is Symmanayah, and these are the words I'm compelled to present before an awakening nation. This segment is part of the Restoring Dominion series under the White Robes family, but it's Restoring Dominion Part 5. My brothers and sisters, as you can see if you're looking at the slide, it says demonstrating the power of the Almighty Yahuah in Yahusha's name. Consider these things, my brothers and sisters. People are facing evictions and foreclosures. People are facing hardship as it relates to food, even clothing, transportation, safety. People are dealing with anxieties as it relates to this COVID-19, the coronavirus, measles, cancer, diabetes, and other ailments, other sicknesses. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of woes, my brothers and sisters. And we who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father Yahuah, we believe that He is the Almighty and the most powerful one of all. I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, as it reads in 1 Peter 4:17, that judgment begins at the house of Yahuah first. We are that house. And if you search the scriptures, through Yahusha Mashiach, we are linked with Yahuah, the Almighty Father. For Yahusha is indeed Yahuah's word manifest in the flesh. I'm saying this to say, with all the woes, with all the challenges, with all the pain, with all the desire for comfort, it takes power. And that power that brings about understanding as it relates to everlasting life, as it relates to worshiping and obeying the Almighty Father Yahuah, is from Him. And I will submit the case of things we must be mindful of, O Yashar'al, in order to witness the power of Yahuah work in us, through us, one towards another, and before those who witness His power, His actions working in us. Come with me, but let me first read the following. Warning and disclaimer. The information contained in White Rose family represent instructions and warnings to individuals who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Creator Yahuah to Yahusha Mashiach. Now I'm referencing John 6:44. The content presented centers around end-time realities. Please be advised, this site is not intended for children under 16 years of age due to its content. Make no mistake, O Yashar'al, I am aware that Isaiah 55:11 will allow any life-giving words to reach the ears, no matter what age. But I must put this in there to be compliant with the video platforms that I'm using. By continuing forward, you agree to hold Symmanayah harmless of any influence in or actions that arise as a result of watching, listening, and reviewing the content presented. The views expressed do not reflect the owners, management, and or shareholders of this media platform. Please note that I am not affiliated with any one or organization with similar names. With that said, my brothers and sisters, before we get into some scriptures, I want to say this. Who would give a child a weapon, a powerful weapon, whether it's a gun, a bow and arrow, a spear? Who would give a child power to do things that are phenomenal? Who would give that power to a child and not watch that child, not guard over that child, not make sure that child knows how to use that powerful weapon that he or she has received from you? If you handed a baby a gun, someone young enough with the strength to hold it, or could barely hold it, wouldn't you watch to make sure you train them how to use it right? Wouldn't you guard over that individual? I'll present the case, my brothers and sisters, why it's important. Why you hear me constantly talk about discern the spirit of Yahusha. For it is written in the scriptures that with the belief of a mustard seed, we can move mountains. We can cast out devils. We can heal the sick, restore sight to the blind. We can curse trees. We can do many great things. But I say to you, O Yashar'al, in this series, Restoring Dominion, there are some things, some attributes, some abilities that were given to us from the beginning of creation. Abilities, it is said in the scientific community that man only uses about 1/10 of his brain. Think about all the abilities that man have in managing this planet. Think about the strength that we have. Think about the innovations that we have discovered. And I say to you, O Yashar'al, the Almighty Father, we have found favor in things, abilities that we didn't know we have. And we have found favor as we will discover the power beyond just the initial abilities, beyond just the initial attributes that was given us to have dominion over the earth and the animals and creeping things. Beyond that, the power and might of the Almighty Father was in us. It is so important for us to realize that discerning his voice is necessary. You see, we're not going to have a lot of people saying, oops, I prayed that that mountain be removed. That was the wrong mountain. Some of Yashar'al was over there. Oh, I made a mistake. That's not the river I wanted parted. Oh, I made a mistake and restored blind to a murderer, a crook and a thief. It's not about that, Yashar'al. It's not about, hey, I got the power. I can do anything. I can lay my hands on anybody. The scripture says lay hands suddenly on no one. So what's important, O Yashar'al, is that we discern, that we grow and study and discern the voice of the Spirit of Yahuah and test that spirit that is leading and guiding us. And I can assure you, during these end times, we will witness the power and might of the Almighty Father Yahuah working and flowing through us one towards another. The set-apart children of Yahuah, chosen to fulfill the final exodus, chosen to be martyrs for Yahusha's name, chosen to be anchors until such time as destruction or until such time as Yahuah, the Almighty Father, calls these earthen vessels to rest. We must be serious, my brothers and sisters, and understand the power and might requires us to be attentive to him so that we don't make mistakes, so that we don't overstep our bounds. Do we control the power of the Almighty Father? I think not. I know so. But there are gifts and callings that's beyond our comprehension that we're yet to discover. And there's the flowing power of the Almighty Father beyond the abilities to have dominion over the earth. There's a power yet to be seen that will indeed bring deliverance in many, many ways, shapes, and forms. Let's get into some scripture, O Yashar'al. It is important that we understand that the Almighty Father Yahuah is the beginning and the end. You see, so though we are endowed with the power from the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name, timing is of the essence, knowing when to yield to his power, knowing when to yield and demonstrate that power in word, in deed, in action. We must know that the power begins and ends with him, that he is indeed the timekeeper. He is the author and finisher of our life. Revelation 1:8 says, I am the Aleph and the Tah, beginning and end, says Yahuah, who is, who was, and who is to come, the Almighty. Precision and timing in the very power that we seek to witness during these challenging times. Isaiah 46:9 and 10 says, remember the former events of old, for I am all, and there is no one else, the Almighty One, and there is no one like me, declaring the end from the beginning, from of old, that which have not yet been done, saying, my counsel does stand, and all my delight I do. Yashar'al. Timing. The author and finisher, the beginning and the end, is the Almighty Father. It is important, my brothers and sisters, for us to recognize the why regarding the name of Yahusha. There are many people who say, oh, it doesn't really matter. And they call them different names. I don't need to echo them and repeat them, for I am compelled to call my Savior Yahusha. I'm compelled to call the Almighty Father Yahuah in the name of Yahusha. By saying in the name of Yahusha, it represents that I acknowledge his plan for restoration in life. I acknowledge his plan for salvation. I acknowledge his power that I receive and those that are set apart receive is because of the name of Yahusha. I acknowledge the virgin birth, the sacrifice, the resurrection. Though many people may not understand how they are one, time will prove otherwise. The why regarding the name of Yahusha. So many people rather say Yah, the Almighty One, Abba Father, more so than saying Yahusha. Look around, O Yashar'al. Begin to do a mental count and see how many times your moray, your teacher, your elder, your pastor, your community head, your group leader, see how many times they mention Yahusha. See how many times they call on the name of the Father Yahuah in the name of Yahusha. For so many have demonstrated they treat Yahusha, the name Yahusha, like he was someone that did a sacrifice and brought us to Yahuah, and then he stepped to the side, to the right hand, and he's not doing anything. It's an abomination and wickedness to disregard the plan of the Almighty Father, to think you can just take Yahusha and just set him to the side, or you can just call him any name and that's okay. What gives you the right to think that you do not have an obligation to learn the name of the ultimate husband, the ultimate sovereign? You see, my brothers and sisters, though we have faced many challenges, let me say this, O Yashar'al. Look around. There were people who cast out demons and stuff in Yahusha's name, and he said, depart from me, I never knew you. There are people who believe that they're martyrdom now by them using the pagan substitute for Yahusha's name, that's it. No, my brothers and sisters. Many will be surprised. There are people that we know or have known that have crossed our path that believe adamantly in the name that is used most commonly to try to demonstrate the power and might of Yahuah. The name JC, knowing the letter J was never around during such time. And they believe by saying transliterated that gives them a pass. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, during the pain and suffering, during the most challenging of times, during the chaos and crises that are about to ramp up, that have begun in our midst, it is important for us to know the name Yahusha and why. Look at those who use different names for Yahusha, and look at what type of power, what type of life in the scriptures do they present and demonstrate versus those who say his name otherwise. Measure the amount of set apartness coming from those who use different names compared to those who use the name Yahusha. Measure their fruit, their actions. Let's get into some more scriptures, O Yashar'al. The why in the name of Yahusha is important. Come with me to Matthew's 18th chapter, verse 19 and 20. Matthew's 18th chapter, verse 19 and 20. Understanding the why regarding the name of Yahusha. 19th verse. Again, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning any matter they seek it, any matter that they ask, concerning any matter that they ask, it shall be done for them by my Father in the heavens. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst. My brothers and sisters, what if you walked up to multiple doors and they each had a label on it? But only one door was the door that takes you to set apartness. Let's say for the sake of life, only one door had water and food. Only one door was an entrance to safety and shelter. Only one door provided protection. Would you just open all of them if they had different variations of Yahusha's name? But only one is correct. That's what we're going to find that we're facing, O Yashar'al. In these end times, as Yashar'al prepare to gather, some of the gathering have begun, and we will merge into greater groups until we witness the 144,000 and great multitude mentioned in Revelation's 7th chapter emerge. That gathering is gradually taking place. The preparation for the great and final Exodus have begun. But we will learn, O Yashar'al. I will say this to any of you who are using Yahusha's name with a W. W historically meant I'm seeing double U's, 2 U's. It's a oo sound. There was no wah as in the 2 U's, it's oo. So if you're using a W in Yahuwah's name or Yahusha's name, that just means 2 U's. And so if you're using a W and a U, that's like 3 U's. The bottom line, O Yashar'al, the chosen leaders of the Almighty Father will prove that it's not acceptable to have all these different names that leads to salvation. There's only one name that brings us to restoration and fellowship with the Almighty Father. That name is Yahusha. Pray and watch. Being stubborn, if you are indeed one who seek the will of the Almighty Father, your breakthrough and understanding will come. John 1:12 says, but as many as received him, to them he gave authority to become children of the Almighty One, those believing in his name. Let me ask you, O Yashar'al, I asked this and I said I would start asking this more often. Are you satisfied with your teacher, your moray, your community head, your pastor, your shepherd? Is he or she demonstrating the power of the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name? Are they demonstrating set-apart authority that is phenomenal? Or are they just saying they are and want you to agree with them? Are they just fabricating a narrative to make you think they're casting out demons and devils with the power of the Almighty Father? Deception is widespread, O Yashar'al. Soon, and very soon, a power that we never imagined will be magnified before our very eyes. Acts 4:10-12 says, let it be known to all of you and to all the people of Yashar'al that in the name of Yahusha Messiah of Nazareth, whom you impaled, whom the Almighty One raised from the dead, by this one stands before you healthy. This is a stone which was rejected by you builders, which has become the chief cornerstone. And there is no deliverance in anyone else, for there is no other name under the heaven given among men by which we need to be saved. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, the importance of the name is key to witnessing the power and might of the Almighty Father flow through us, one towards another and before the world. There's a given power that was given that we have received, my brothers and sisters. The power given It's the power and might to walk straight, to focus forward, to endure until the end. That end might be today for some. That end might be witnessing the physical return of Yahusha Mashiach or anything in between. Matthew 22:29 says, and Yahusha answered said to him, you go astray, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of the Almighty One. You see, many will go astray. There will be a falling away, as written in Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. There'll be a falling away, my brothers and sisters. But keep this in mind. Those who study and pray and discern and witness the life in the scriptures and witness the power and might of the Almighty Father as he brings the scriptures alive and as he brings things alive before us. We will witness the power given by the Almighty Father. And it will occur in Yahusha's name. Luke 10:19 and 20 says, see, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and none at all shall hurt you. But do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names have been written in the heavens. My brothers and sisters, you see, there are some pastors, some bishops from different religions, some leaders from different religions, belief. Some, believe it or not, sought to do the will of the Almighty Father, but in stubbornness, by undiscerning spirit, ears and eyes, they were as babes. And they jumped out there saying they rebuked the coronavirus. Many have tried to speak lightly. This COVID-19, my brothers and sisters, this disease, if you search the scriptures, when widespread famine and pestilence and diseases came at the order, listen to what I'm saying now, the order of the Almighty Father, it was to humble us. It was to bring our flesh into subjection so that our spirit can rise up strong, so that we can rise up in obedience. The Most High Father promised discipline to his children. He promised vengeance and wrath to those who are not his. And it is written that he reigned on the just and the unjust. So some of us are in the way, but that doesn't stop what he promised. Yashar'al, or Yashar'al, the power and authority that's given us is for us to look at him who is the beginning and the end, and to know when to speak truth to power as he guides us. When fools jump out there trying to rebuke what the Almighty Father has ordered, that's like they're raising their hands to the Almighty Father, and he's saying, I ordered this. We must discern the purpose of all that is before us and what we are to learn and what we are to do. O Yashar'al. Yes, power and authority is given, but we must understand timing when it comes to demonstrating it. More on the power given. Malachi 3:6 says, for I am Yahuah. I shall not change, and you, O sons of Yaakov, shall not come to an end. If we look at the scriptures in times past, when Isaiah prophesied at the power and might of the Almighty Father, we must look at when Elijah or Eliyahu called fire down from the sky. It was out of obedience to the Most High. We must look at when Musha said if something new should happen and the ground opened up and swallow you. And in his words, one of the first sinkholes that we could have imagined opened up and swallowed the rebellious in Numbers 16th chapter. You see, my brothers and sisters, there's a power, but it's a power that we must be responsible and discerning enough. James 1:16 and 17 said, do not go astray, my beloved brothers. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, whom there is no change nor shadow of turning. And Romans 11:29 said, for the gifts and calling of Yahuah are not to be repented of. My brothers and sisters, I want you to understand this. There are some gifts, some talents, some abilities that have manifest through us, whether it be skills in driving, cooking, gardening, hand-to-hand combat, mentoring, teaching, managing, instructing, praying, building. We have many abilities and many natural gifts, but I say these gifts are from the Almighty Father, who changed not. Let's look at all that Yashar'al has built. Look at the beauty and splendor of all that have taken place. Even look at the magnitude of the ark, that at the hands of Noah and his children, by the guidance and power, by the skills given to him by the Almighty Father Yahuah, out of obedience, we witness the gifts and calling, the abilities that the Almighty Father has given us. Out of obedience, we will witness the power of the Almighty Father demonstrated before us. Hear these words, O Yashar'al. We will recognize how to obey the living orders and guidance from Yahusha. Whether I say the Spirit of Yahusha or the Spirit of the Almighty Father Yahuah, they are both the same, but it's important that we say Yahusha because we acknowledge how indeed we are joined and linked into that power, O Yashar'al. If you search the scriptures, you'll see where Yahusha is quoted saying that the Father, when he go to the Father, how his Spirit is shed before us, the Comforter, understanding. He will bring remembrance and guidance. No one can come into the Father unless he draws them to Yahusha, drawing us to his plan. Basically saying, I'm calling you, my children. Where Yahuwah said, I'm calling you. But to reach me, you must acknowledge the plan, the pathway in which I have provided for you. And that pathway is through Yahushua Mashiach. My word manifests in the person of Yahusha. My spirit sent to you in Yahusha's name, as it is written. The scriptures bear witness to the words I present. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al. Obedience is something that many people struggle and wrestle with. There are so many dynamics dealing with obedience that we fight. When we begin to think about nation building, set apart nation building, there are things that will be ordered, directed of us, that are contrary to this Western culture that we've been indoctrinated with. Things regarding how we dress, how we communicate, how we interact, even when it comes to marriage. We're so indoctrinated with this Western culture that our women find themselves alone without any covering because they cannot receive that polygyny, not polygamy, polygyny, one husband, multiple wives. They cannot see that that is a nation building tenet. They fail to do the math. It's just not enough men for every woman to have one husband. The Most High demonstrated how there are ways and means in which we govern ourselves, and we should govern ourselves in a tribal sense, where you have the husband, and it can be one or multiple wives. And there are men who are influenced by their wives. They think just because they're in the privacy of their home or residence or wherever they are, they think that nobody knows that their wife is saying, you better not be talking about more than one wife. You better tell them one wife is enough. You better take that scripture where it said, let a bishop be that of one wife, or you ain't getting any, or you're not going to get any love from me, or I'm out of here. See, you think that by being in the privacy of your home, I've been married nearly 35 years. Within a matter of days, it would be 35 years. Yashar'al. And I've mentioned to my Isha, my wife, that I believe polygyny is a nation building tenet. That do I have multiple wives? No. But I even tell my Isha, if Yahuwah was to order it, be mindful of such. Do you think that there's going to be 144,000 Hebrews along with this great multitude? And as we are gathered in this final Exodus, do you think that it's going to be where the woman can just wave her husband in the face of a single female? I got my husband, too bad for you. Do you think that the set-apart nation of Yashar'al is that shallow? And I'm not here to preach on polygyny, but what I am here to speak on is let us look at all the nation-building tenets so that we can witness the power and the fruit of such actions. Some of our distractions, some of the things that we would call our weaknesses, are because we fight against nation-building tenets, set apart dynamics. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, all the power and might of the Almighty Father will be demonstrated as is needed to fulfill his promises to us. And we must begin to learn to discern when it comes to dress and garments, when it comes to fellowship, when it comes to purging the wicked from our midst, delivering one to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, when it comes to embracing that stranger after vetting and believing that he is indeed or she is indeed our brother or sister, when it comes to fitly joining the set-apart family of Yashar'al, we must be mindful why obeying the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name is important. This is how we will begin to see power like never before. What say you, Yashar'al? Let me say this. Remember why it is important to discern the voice of Yahusha. More, why I want to drive this home. For in restoring dominion, we must understand the dynamics of what abilities were given us and how we're to manage those abilities, what gifts we've received and how to utilize those gifts, what favor we have found and what we must do with that favor. The voice of the Spirit of Yahusha. Philippians 1:8 through 11, and I've shared it before, for the Almighty One is my witness. How I long for you all with the affection of Yahusha Messiah. And this I pray that your love might extend more and more in knowledge and all discernment. You see, my brothers and sisters, to extend more in knowledge and discernment, we must fear Yahuwah. Remember Proverbs 1:7. The fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. That knowledge, discernment, is when the Spirit of Yahusha reveals. And when a brother or a sister share something with you and reveal it to you and make known something that is phenomenal, phenomenally set apart, and we see it. You see, we think that we can share a verse, the text. We think that we can demonstrate the power of Yahuwah, and that means the other person is going to be able to have the same power and demonstrate. My brothers and sisters, the power we have, is it possible for them to do so? Yes. Will they? Not all the time. For such a time as this, different individuals are in different positions as the Most High order. But it's important for us to discern what the Spirit is saying. He goes on to say, for you to examine the matters that differ in order to be sincere and not stumbling until the day of Messiah. The things we differ on, oh, listen to these words. Let us ask questions. Let us search the scriptures. Let us have the patience to receive the living instructions, the correction, the reproof that is necessary for unity. How many camps, communities, mores, teachers, how many leaders are saying, this is what I say to you on how to examine things, how to discern whether they're set apart or not. This is what I'm imparting on you to discern whether I'm presenting something to you that is true or not. How many of them are adamant about their flock, about you, about me, growing strong in discerning the voice of the Spirit of Yahusha? Or how many of them prefer you to just trust what they're saying because they said the Most High told them? Trust what they're saying because they say the Ruach gave it to them. Or narratives such as, it was the Spirit that made it known to me. Ask questions, my brothers and sisters. Believe it or not, if you ask enough questions, you can discern, you can uncover one who is perpetrating, one who is a wolf in sheep's clothing, or just undiscerning or unlearned, but want you to think they're anointed. The days ahead, O Yashar'al, will prove the perpetrators. My brothers and sisters, did I finish reading all that? Discernment for you to examine matters that differ in order to be sincere and not stumbling until the day of Messiah, being filled with the fruit of righteousness through Yahusha Messiah to the esteem and praise of the Almighty One. Those who ignore Yahusha, and I'm saying Yahusha, if you want to be with someone that's calling Yahusha a different name, be with that person. And watch whether the discipline of the Almighty Father comes, whether the correction comes. You will, O Yashar'al, examine and witness the fruit of your decision. Yes, those who say, no, his name is this, his name is that. Be mindful of the name you follow under, O Yashar'al. For that individual may very well lead you into regret. Let me continue. My brothers and sisters, the voice of the Spirit of Yahusha is critical. We will grow to know the voice of Yahusha's Spirit working in us. We will discern the life like we've never believed in the following passage. Yahusha answered them, I have told you and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness concerning me. But you do not believe because you are not of my sheep, as I said to you. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them everlasting life, and they shall by no means ever perish, and no one shall snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hands. My brothers and sisters, the scriptures speak to the children of Yashar'al, the set-apart children of Yashar'al. When it talked about delivering one to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, notice that it says, so that the spirit may be saved. It's still talking about a brother or sister. It's talking about one who overstepped their bounds, one unlearned, one on milk. And their physical body faced degradation. Their physical body began to experience things that lead to death. And in some cases, physical death actually occurred. You see, my brothers and sisters, the fruit of disobedience, the fruit of stumbling and falling and not listening to those that the Most High is using to speak to you, or when the Spirit of Yahushua is speaking directly to you, to disregard that could yield fatal conditions for us. And there are those, O Yashar'al, there are those who are brothers and sisters who will face sickness and die, but they will demonstrate that their belief and trust is in Yahuwah. They will demonstrate that their belief is still in everlasting life. Just to demonstrate, O Yashar'al, the value of these earthen vessels. It is said in John 10:27, my sheep hear my voice. If ever there was a time to begin to discern the voice of the Spirit of Yahushua coming through us one towards another, subjecting ourselves one to another, as Ephesians 5:21 mentions. Yes, the literal is talking about a husband and wife. But if you read it, you'll see it also talks about how Yahusha relationship functions with his assembly. And we are that assembly. And as Yahusha works in us, through us, he will bring his assembly into unity in the coming of days. Let me continue. John 10:28-29. I give them everlasting life. They shall by no means ever perish, and no one shall snatch them out of my hand. My brothers and sisters, are you stressed? Are you curious? Are you anxious? Make no mistake, I say that a lot because many of us will stumble. But if we should, O Yashar'al, something else I say is that is knowing how to get under the blood of the Lamb and cry out for forgiveness and yield to reproof and correction and rise up new and strong, not worried about what we did back then or yesterday, looking at what we are doing now, how we govern ourselves now. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, we will grow to understand when to yield and when to demonstrate the power of Yahuah. It is important for us to understand these words, lest we find ourselves in the way, lest we find ourselves as a stumbling block. Consider these words, my brothers and sisters. Romans 8:12-14 says, so then, brothers, we are not debtors to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. See, we've been conditioned in captivity. There's a lot of programming that have taken place on what worshiping and obeying the Almighty Father represents. There are a lot of habits and behaviors. There are a lot of cultural differences in these so-called industrialized nations that cause us to be living according to the flesh. And this, at many times, is that stumbling block. This, at many times, impede our ability to discern what the voice of the Spirit of Yahusha is saying to demonstrate the power of the Almighty Father Yahuah. So let us begin to understand the difference between life according to the flesh and life according to what is ordered. Goes on to say in the 13th verse, I'm in Romans 8th chapter, 13th verse. For if you live according to the flesh, you are going to die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you shall live. For as many as led by the Spirit of the Almighty One, these are the sons of the Almighty One. And I assure you, my brothers and sisters, those led by the Spirit of the Almighty One will demonstrate the power and their position as the sons. And though it says sons, it means sons and daughters, O Yashar'al. Power and might is coming before the nation, the set-apart nation of Yashar'al, in such a way that we would have never imagined. We who are chosen and that are obedient will demonstrate the meaning of restored dominion. And in that restored dominion, it will reflect the power and might of the Almighty Father. John 14:12 says, truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me, in the works that I do shall do also, and greater works than these he shall do, because I go to my Father. I say to you, O Yashar'al, what work do you believe will take place during end times? Consider the final exodus and the possible martyrdom situation for some of us. Consider what it takes to guard and protect us. Consider what it takes to provide the supplies and resources, the strength, the life necessary to fulfill the final exodus. Also consider what it will take for the 144,000 Hebrews in great multitude mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter to come together in unity. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, let us discern whose side we will take. I want you to be mindful of an example that occurred. I mentioned it earlier, but I want to take you to it. Let me point to these words that occurred in Numbers 16th chapter. I'm just going to read an excerpt, but read the whole chapter to get the full understanding of what took place. Moshe said, by this you know that Yahuah has sent me to do all these works, that they are not from my own heart. If these die as all men do, or if they are visited as all men are visited, then Yahuah has not sent me. But if Yahuah creates what is unheard of, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, Sheol, then you shall know that these men have scorned. And it came to be, as he ended speaking all these words, that the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households and all the men of Korah with all their goods. My brothers and sisters, whether you realize it or not, 16th chapter of Numbers speak of probably the first known, or one of the first known, sinkholes. Yeah, we call it today sinkholes. So if we were to witness such power, and what happened, my brothers and sisters, is this was a time when Dathan, Korah, and Abiram questioned the leadership, questioned what Moshe and Aaron and the elders were doing. They questioned. And so there was a time when Moshe, or Moses, said, everybody that's with them, go over there on their side. I'm paraphrasing. All that believe that Yahuah have used me to lead you, come on this side. Believe it or not, as end times progress, there will be chosen ones that will not argue with individuals. They're going to say, come with me as I am led, that we may gather together as a set apart nation. And these are the criteria of those that come and walk with me. We must acknowledge Yahuah in the name of Yahusha. We must recognize that Yahusha is the way, the truth, and the life. And if you don't, go on that way. Go on that way. Watch the power and might. So make sure unequivocally that you're with the right community, camp, group, fellowship. For as famine and pestilence enlarge, as civil unrest magnify, as widespread destruction and death increase, there will be those who will have regrets. Wouldn't you prefer to be someone that is confident in the decision that you're making? Even if it leads to a physical death, you can shout, hallelujah, to die in Yahusha is gain. You see, my brothers and sisters, in spite of all that is occurring, we who are obedient to the Almighty Father will yet continue to magnify him, for this is his plan. Individuals who demonstrate obedience to Abba Yahuah will show power. They will show the power and might that we are endowed with. In the coming days, pray and watch. There are some demonstrations of power from the Almighty Father that will bring about physical death, destruction. It will bring about extreme humility. There will be weeping, there will be crying, there will be pain, there will be joy, there will be shouts of hallelujah. We will face mixed emotions, but remember something I share often in Proverbs that speak of, let your eyelids look forward, walk straight, for the Almighty Father will direct our footsteps. Obedience is greater than sacrifice. Obedience is greater than sacrifice. Are you not aware of what is written? Consider these words, O Yashar'al. Come with me to 1 Samuel. And I'm going to share that passage about looking forward in a moment. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22 and 23. You see, dominion requires everlasting life. Let us discern and obey him. It requires obedience to him who is the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name. It says, then Samuel said, does Yahuah delight in ascending, offering, and slaughtering as in obeying the voice of Yahuah? Look, to obey is better than the slaughtering. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahuah, he also does reject you as sovereign. Remember, the Almighty Father Yahuah changed not. And though Samuel was speaking to someone specifically during such a time as that, do you not believe that this applies to us, that obedience is greater than sacrifice? Pray and seek to discern the life in these instructions. They apply to us to this day. My brothers and sisters, I mentioned that I would bring the passage about looking straight. Here it is, Proverbs 4:25. I also want to bring to your attention Proverbs 6:4. Proverbs 4:25. Let your eyelids look forward, your eyelids look straight before you. Give no sleep before you. That's 4:25. Let your eyelids look forward. Let your eyes look forward, rather, and your eyelids look straight before you. Yashar'al, we will no doubt be overwhelmed with the challenges we're about to face. That includes me, each of us. We will be overwhelmed. Some will be stressed out beyond repair because of disbelief, undiscerning. Some of us, in our mental and emotional weakness, will rise up strong in the strength and power of the might of Yahuah working and flowing through us in Yahusha's name. If you look around, my brothers and sisters, the conditions that's occurring now, we've probably seen people say, I didn't sleep. I can't sleep. I haven't slept in a day, 2 days. Consider these words if you are indeed my brother or sister. Proverbs 6:4 said, give no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. You see, my brothers and sisters, when Yahusha is lifted up, we must focus on him. And in focusing on him, we will get some answers that are necessary to bring about strength and endurance during such a time as this. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, this generation will realize end times is here. End times will prove it's time to begin discovering those who will be among the ranks of the 144,000 in great multitude. Unity comes. Set apartness calls out to us, O Yashar'al. These are the stages of preparation. These are the stages of shaping and structuring us for the fulfillment of what's to come. I ask you, what say you, O Yashar'al? Are your pastors, teachers, mores, prophets, priests? Are your spiritual leaders giving you instructions for you to identify the tasks that are before you and the tasks that are before Yashar'al? Are they talking about how to identify those that will be linked together for this final exodus? Are they talking about how to discern and identify, how to vet, how to ask questions, how to discover whether one is indeed our brother or our sister? If not, my brothers and sisters, it's time for you to rethink. Are you positioned with the right leader? And if your leader is stubborn and one who wants to preserve and protect his own or her own ego and pride, again, this is the time to ask, am I following the right leader? For soon and very soon, the answer to that question will be magnified. And for some, it will come with much regret and disappointment. For others, we will shout, hallelujah. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, I cannot stress enough. Prepare to witness the power of a set-apart assembly. Prepare to witness the emergence of the 144,000 in great multitude. Prepare to witness the life and the Almighty Father working through us with a power that will make these verses that I'm about to share more alive than ever before. Hebrews 10:24 and 25 said, and let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging and so much more as you see the day coming near. I've seen pastors want to fight against the laws that man set out with this social distancing, and they throw this verse out. They want us to violate the scriptures when they say don't assemble ourselves. We're not supposed to just blanketly disassemble just because they throw this scripture out. There's timing, my brothers and sisters. There's timing in movement. There's timing when it comes to assembling together. Those who have fallen victims from influential people that are saying don't forsake the assembling or want to fight against these laws because they think they can just use this verse for their own gain. Many of these leaders and pastors and spiritual deceitful ones, deceitfully spiritual, so to speak. Many of these individuals who are just off base are more concerned with tithes and offering and money or an audience to watch them perform. The assembling together, my brothers and sisters, we are to discern and make sure we're with the right assembly. We are to discern the timing of when the Spirit of Yahusha is telling us to assemble and be together, and when he's telling us to step back and pray and discern some living instructions he may have for us. Even Shalum, when he had the road to Damascus, he talks about going into Arabia. He didn't go to the taught ones or the disciples first. He went into Arabia. He communed with the Father in the name of Yahusha and got instructions. And then he joined up. We will. There are those of us who will, and at some time come to recognize we will have our Arabia experience, our time of pause to grow strong. This is the time to ask questions, to seek to discern, to hear the still voice of Yahuwah speaking to us. It's not about how loud, how emotional we get, how charismatic. The assembling of ourselves together. We're getting ready to see a powerful set-apart assembly, Yashar'al, pray and watch. And it will be a beautiful thing. Consider Psalms 133. I'm going to read 1 through 3, but read the whole Psalms 133. It's not that long. See how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. Like the precious oil on the head running down on the beard of Aharon, running down from the collar of his robes, like the dew of Hermon that comes down on the mountains of Sion. For there Yahuwah commanded the blessings, life forever. My brothers and sisters, the power of a set-apart assembly, we're getting ready to see what that looked like. Those that will be physically alive to see it. As I begin to wrap this segment up, do we not want to see the power of Yahuwah demonstrated before our eyes to bring comfort, to bring assurance, to enlarge our trust and our beliefs? That power is coming. In order to fulfill his promises, it takes his power to break through all the noise, all the false teachings, all the false demonstrations, all the wickedness, all the disobedience. It takes power. And we will be recipients that will demonstrate that power, we who are obedient to him. In time, we'll prove responsibilities and dominion come with plans, details, and processes. I won't speak much on this slide you see here, Yashar'al. Take a moment to pause it. If you're tuning in for the first time, I will read it quickly. But you can pause if you're able to read. But the plan of White Rose family is to contribute to the building up of set-apart leaders, proven, vetted to be chosen by the Almighty Father Yahuwah, led by the Spirit of Yahusha, working as iron sharpening iron, demonstrating how we are to serve and to guide one another, to develop an information and resource center, a place where you can call and get answers, virtually and physically, to build a team with diverse skill sets, to purchase land in Virginia, which I believe will be the exit point, to identify and support safe zones as we move along the way where we can stop and fuel up, rest up, to provide guidance and support for completing the journey, to provide guidance for the inner circle life, the inner court life, the life of the set-apart children of Yahuah, to grow in discipline as we find ourselves waiting on Yahusha Mashiach's physical return. My brothers and sisters, understand this. I've seen people say, well, why would you put your plan out there? Why would you openly say what all you want to do? Is it wise to take a candle and hide it under the bed? Is it wise to cover up a light? You see, my brothers and sisters, if you search the scriptures, there are times when Yahusha, when the Almighty Father brought he's not the author. He allowed people to be confused because of their disobedience, the fruit of their disobedience. He's not the author of confusion. But he says to disobey him will bring confusion. To be divided against him brings death. See, people, even though I'm putting this plan up here, people who don't understand the dynamics of what's ahead, they're not going to be attracted to this plan. And look at the scriptures. Did the Most High hide end-time prophecies, details from us? Is not the scriptures the most widely circulated book on the planet? But you see, my brothers and sisters, there are times when the Almighty Father have blinded an individual or even snatched the breath of life from an individual. I am compelled to present these dynamics because I believe, without a doubt, O Yashar'al, those who sincerely seek to do the will of the Almighty Father will look for these attributes in the community, in the camps, in the fellowships, in the group. They will look for attributes from team leaders. They will look for attributes for individuals who know how to serve and guide and direct people on how to mentor the unlearned and educate the unlearned and the undiscerning. They will look for attributes where skills are recognized, confirmed, and reaffirmed. They will look for attributes of where should I be as widespread destruction, as famine and disease spread. They will look for attributes of where can I stop to rest up. Those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father will indeed be hungry for guidance regarding what to do. Are you satisfied, O Yashar'al? The plan of White Rose's family is not a be-all, end-all. It is a contributing plan. And any plan from any individual from the Almighty Father comes with a cost. And we will discover, just as in Matthew 25th chapter 14 to 30, we can use the talents that are given us or risk losing them. Yashar'al, Yashar'al, if you believe I'm saying anything that draws you closer to the Almighty Father, if you believe I'm saying anything that resembles life, that points to a loving and set apart flow of actions, subscribe, for there is much more to come. Share. Help me, O Yashar'al, spread the words that I believe I am compelled to present. My confidence comes in Isaiah 55:11. But I also know that we are instructed to ask. I also know that some of you will experience some things, and this here will come back that he asked. Some of you may use the excuse, I don't like the way he asked. I don't like the way he came across. Then so be it. But I ask for your support. I ask for you to consider contributing towards the grand plan of the Almighty Father in bringing unity together, unwavering unity, not a compromising bunch, but a group or assembly that is demonstrating the attributes of what it means to be as iron sharpening iron, a group that does not waver and allow compromising behaviors. My brothers and sisters, if you have questions, comments, put them below. or email me at Symmanayah@yahswatchman.net or .com. Let us engage one another in fruitful conversation, O Yashar'al. It is impossible to please the Almighty Father if we do not believe. And we must understand what belief is. And we must understand what it is to examine the spirit that moves us. We must examine the things that cause us to demonstrate what we believe is the power of Yahuah, to make sure it is indeed the power of Yahuah. Yashar'al, with each passing day, we can't rewind back to yesterday or last year. Some use the term return business or things returning back to normal. It was never normal, O Yashar'al. We are on a path. From a practical and scientific perspective, we are on a path, these bodies are on a path to extinction. And you hear words like depopulation or population control. You hear words that they're killing us off. My brothers and sisters, there are countermeasures, counter narratives to let you see what is going on. But you can chase after the conspiracy. You can chase after the scientific and practical definitions that the wicked one is throwing out there. You can chase after those narratives and be confused. But I can assure you, pain and regret is the fruit of such actions. Or we can begin to let our eyes look forward, our eyelids focus forward. We can begin to discern what the Spirit of Yahuah is saying to us in Yahusha's name. We can begin to yield and witness the power to move mountains, to cause rivers to part, to cause trees to wither or to bear fruit, to demonstrate power that causes our enemies to be blinded or to drop dead if they're seeking to do us harm, when the Almighty Father is ordering our footsteps to a certain place or point. Power. It's not for us to hold our heads up and look around. Don't you come at me. I'll point the power and drop dead and let fire come out the sky. No, my brothers and sisters. It's about discerning what the Almighty Father is saying. If he is indeed stirring our spirit to call fire, if he is indeed stirring our spirit to order a mountain to be moved, if he is indeed stirring our spirit for someone's breath to be snatched from them and they drop dead. Look up Ananias and Sapphira, who lied to the taught ones. And just by lying, they thought they were just lying to the taught one of Yahuah. They were trying to lie to Yahuah. They dropped dead, gave up the ghost. Look it up. The scriptures bear witness. So, my brothers and sisters, the power, demonstrating the power of the Almighty Yahuah in Yahusha's name, is not something that is to be taken lightly or frivolously. Ask yourself, if a teacher, preacher, if a moreh, if a pastor wants you to put all your trust in guns or weapons, if a teacher, pastor, moreh wants you to put all your trust in them and they laughing and giggling, if a teacher or moreh or pastor is trying to rebuke the very thing that Yahuah is ordering, it's time to ask yourself, if you see these things, ask them and inquire of them regarding these matters. If you see a pastor, teacher, moreh want to be lifted up, more so than lifting up Yahusha Mashiach, ask them about it. Ask them why don't they correct people when they sit up there. It's one thing to exhort that pastor. It's one thing to encourage that pastor or moreh. But it's another thing when you hear more about the pastor, the moreh, the shepherd, the priest, the bishop. When you hear more about them, then you hear about the living spirit of Yahuah working through us in Yahusha's name. They rather dismiss the spirit of Yahusha's name working in us and use words like Ruach HaKadosh. That means set apart spirit. So I'm not saying that's wrong, but it is more power and strength in the name of Yahusha. They rather just say Yah and disregard how they got to Yah. The power of Yah, the power of Yahuah, demonstrating his power. We are about to see what that means. Some of us will rejoice in understanding that. And some of us will regret. And there will be those that will dismiss these words. And the Almighty Father has a reward for such. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, demonstrating the power of Yahuah in Yahusha's name. Pray and watch. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're so overwhelmed and you find yourself weakened, pray. If you discern within your spirit, the Almighty Father is saying, come out of that depression, come out of that situation, then call it out in the name of Yahusha. Reject and rebuke the very thing that is trying to fight against what Yahuah is telling you to do. And if he's telling you to yield, just as Stephen was stoned to death, and cry out to him, then do so. It's a phenomenal thing to understand the voice of the Spirit of Yahuah in Yahusha's name. On that note, O Yashar'al, restoring dominion. We want it, we desire it, we hunger after it. But how much are we willing to yield to the Spirit of Yahuah in Yahusha's name? How much are we willing to recognize the Spirit of Yahuah working in us, through us, one towards another? Watch and behold the hand of the Almighty Father as things become intense. On that note, O Yashar'al, I salute your patience, your tolerance in listening to these words. I salute your desire to pursue set apartness. Know this, our deliverance draws near. There will be a demonstration of Yahuah's power. In spite of the wicked narratives and the conspiracies and the things that are out and promoted before us. If you are indeed a set apart brother or sister, ask yourself, how much time are you spending talking about conspiracy theories or what they're doing versus what the Spirit of Yahusha is saying we must do? How much time are you spending getting to know another brother or sister and enlarge the numbers with confidence that we are set apart children of Yahuah coming together? How much time are you spending talking to another moray, teacher, bishop, pastor that's led by the Spirit of Yahuah in Yahusha's name, to get to know them, to know that coming together will mean my camp, my community, my group that you believe Yahuah has given you? How much time are you spending preparing for the mergers, preparing for the time that you may have to relinquish the baton, so to speak? How much time are we wasting on conspiracies and ills and showing what the wicked one is doing? Signs of the times are there. Let us recognize it, but let us press into the Almighty Father. My brothers and sisters, there's so much I want to say. There's so much I have seen. There's so much that has been proven to be true by the Almighty Father. I just say this. I salute you, and I believe that someday we will come together. We will meet. There will be unity among Yashar'al. There is much work ahead. And to ramp up the obedience, to ramp up the visibility of the power of the Almighty Father, we will see intense times come. So out of our weakness, we will rise up strong in the Spirit of Yahuah in Yahusha's name. On that note, my brothers and sisters, I say to you, much shalom. May you grow in discerning the voice of the Spirit of Yahuah and respond correctly as he directs. Shalom.